प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So, welcome back to the Bhagavad Gita discussion. We are discussing the Sarartha Varshani Tika of the overview of the first six chapters, and we are on the second chapter. The second chapter, last two classes, we have finished verses 1 to 10, Arjuna's further doubts and surrender. We finished the Sankhya section, 11 to 30, the first application of Karma Kand, first application of Atmagyan. And then in the last class, we finished Nishkama Karma Yoga, the second application of Atmagyan. Fight with detachment, then no sinful reactions. So practically all the arguments of Arjuna are counteracted here in this section only. Now, in the last verse of the Nishkam Karma Yoga, it was mentioned Yada Stasasi Nishchala Samadho Achala Buddhi Tada Yogam Avapsasi. Then you have attained, yoga. So there are three definitions of yoga. One is we begin with Nishkama Karma Yoga, where the consciousness is basically Karmanyeva Adhikaraste Ma Phaleshu Kadachana. Ma Karma Phala Heturbhur. And then you have to attain equanimity. That Samatvam Yoga Muchyate. Now, when you actually have attained the yoga, Tada Yogam Avapsasi, what is the state of consciousness? Stasasi Nishala. You are in Samadhi because the Buddhi is Achala. Chala means, agitated or, deflected. But in this Sthita Pragya stage, Samadho Achala Buddhi or Samadho Achala Buddhi. So hearing this quality of a person who has whose Nishkama Karma Yoga has matured and he has become a Sthita Pragya, or what is called as the Jnana Nishta. That means he's become a self-realized soul. So the symptoms of such self-realized soul, or what are the characteristics of the Sthita Pragya, is the next section which we are going to discuss today. So the symptoms of a Sthita Pragya, 54 to 72, this is the section. So Arjuna, hearing this lofty level of consciousness, Arjuna is more keen to know whether such a Sthita Pragya, who is at such lofty level of consciousness, really battle. Ultimately, Arjuna is not convinced that he should fight this war with his relatives. So he, out of curiosity and inquisitiveness, asks these qualities of a Sthita Pragya in this question. Arjuna Vacha Sthita Pragyasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sitadipim prabhasheta himasita vrajeta kim. Arjuna said, Keshava, what is the description of a person situated in Samadhi? Samadhi stasya. Samadhi stasya. Stasya means situated. And ka bhasha. Bhasha means actually characteristics. Bhasha means not language, which language he speaks. The Sthita Pragya. What is the characteristics of a person situated in Samadhi in the Sthita Pragya stage? How does he speak? Sitadi Krim Prabhashita. How does he speak means, which language he speaks, whether Sanskrit, Urdu, or English, not that. So there is a deeper meaning. I will come to that. How does he sit? Kim Asita. And how does he move? Rajeta Kim. How does he sit? So in Sanskrit, there is something called as the Mukhya Vritti and the Gauna Vritti. The Mukhya Vritti is the direct meaning. And the Gauna Vritti, or sometimes this is called as the Lakshana Vritti. The Lakshana Vritti is the, symptomatic meaning or the indirect meaning. When the direct meaning doesn't make any sense, then we have to take the Gaunavritti. So it doesn't make sense, what is the bhasha of a Sthitabhagya person? How does he speak? How does he sit? And how does he move? Arjuna is not asking about some model, who walks on the ramp, like how does he speak, what language he speaks, and how does he sit for the pose and how does he move, how does he walk? No. So the direct Mukhya Vritti meaning of this verse, if you take, it doesn't make sense. So only when the Mukhya Vritti doesn't make sense, then we will have to take the Gauna Vritti, or the Lakshana Vritti. And there are some rules. Use Gauna Vritti only when Mukhya Vritti contradicts other major repeated Mukhya Vritti statements. Use Gauna Vritti that time. And secondly, use Gauna Vritti far less than Mukhya Vritti. So this is the so then bhasha means that which does describe or that describes or characteristics. Ka bhasha. So here bhasha means not language of Sanskrit, Bengali, Hindi or English, but characteristics. So this is the secondary meaning, not the primary meaning. You cannot take the primary meaning here. Kim prabhashita means what is his speech? Now, what is his speech means, is he soft spoken or, is he, hard spoken? One second, just a minute. Give me a minute. So, bhasha means and speech means, whether it's soft spoken or rough spoken, no. Speech means when this Stitapragya person is put under extreme conditions of tribulations, you know, Adhyatmika, Adibodhik, Adidevi Krish, how does he speak internally in his mind? Or when he is asked, in a non-callous way, very neutral way he will speak, not affected by these miseries. So that is what speech means. And Kim Masita means how does he control his senses? How does he control his senses? How he is unresponsive to the senses and the sense objects. And Kim Brajeta means in what way will his senses respond to the objects? So, how he engages the senses, how he responds to sense objects. The senses go to the sense objects. Brajeta means to go. And when they go, how the senses respond to the sense objects. He does all these with very deep detachment. So that is what is Arjuna's deeper question. It is not the primary meaning. You cannot take bhasha as Sanskrit English, and speech means soft or rough, and sit means actually is physically sitting. Rajeta means walking, means not physical walking. How the senses walk towards the sense objects. So it is called as a Lakshana Vritti, So the Gauna Vritti is called as Lakshana, it's a secondary meaning. So that's what this verse is. Now let's see how Krishna starts answering. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmannevatmana Tushta Sita Pragyastadujjate. The Lord said when he completely gives up, Yada Prajahati. Jahati means to give up, and Prajati means to completely give up. Prakrishta Rupena Jahati, completely gives up. All desires which arise from the mind alone. Sarvan Partha Manugatan Kaman. So the kama or the desires arise in the mind. You know. So there are the desires of the soul and the desires of the mind. And the desires of the mind are material, whereas the desires of the soul are spiritual. You have to understand that is the difference because it is the nature of the soul to desire. We are not dead animate beings, inanimate beings, sorry. We are living beings. Atma is a living, it's a person. And its nature is to desire. So, but the desires of the mind, are material desires which actually, lock us in material existence. So this is the mind. Okay, 1 second. I'll just adjust my writer. Yeah. Sarvan Manogatan Kaman. So the Kama are arising from man and is satisfied in the soul alone by that mind. Now, here you have to be very careful. By that mind, Atmani eva Atmana Tushta. So, the soul's desire is to take pleasure in the self only and not in the senses. So, the senses means they are sense gratification. That is the minds. He has given up everything. He is called Pragya. So now Krishna is answering step by step. First, he gives the lakshan of the Sthita Pragya or the Jivan Mukta. He gives up all desires so that not even one desire remains for sense object. Not even one desire. And he gives up these desires because they are all born out of the mind, you know, and they are not the quality of the soul. Atman neva atmana tushta. They are not the qualities of the soul, but they are not intrinsic to the soul. And because they are not intrinsic to the soul, he can give up them. And he is satisfied with the soul alone by that mind. Atmani Atmana Tushta. So the intrinsic quality of the soul is to desire. Just like the intrinsic quality of fire. What is the intrinsic quality of fire? Let us see who will answer. What is the intrinsic quality of fire? Subhaksha Krishna Prabhuji.
Prabhu, heat.
Excellent. The intrinsic quality of fire is heat. Can the fire give up heat? No, it cannot give up. So just as the fire cannot give up its intrinsic quality of heat, the soul has an intrinsic desire. And that desire of the soul is to take pleasure only in the self or to serve the Lord. Serve the Lord. Pure devotional service. Here, pure devotional service actually is not being discussed here because it's self-realization. So that's why it is not being discussed. So, but you have to understand this. And he's called self-realized. That's why he's called as a Sita Pragya. So that is the first answer of Ka Bhasha. Then the second, what is his speech? Now he answers in two verses. Dukkeshu anuvignamana, sukeshu vigata spruha, vitaraga vayakrodha, sitadir muniruchyate. The sage whose mind is not grieved by the appearance of suffering. Dukkeshu anuvigna mana. So how does he speak when adhyatmik, adi bhautik or adi daivik klesh, miseries, afflict him? He's not disturbed by all this. Adhyatmik, he's not disturbed by hunger, thirst, fever, headache, or even a deadly disease. Adi bhautik, he's not disturbed. Vishnu Chakra Thakur says, suffering coming from snakes or tigers, and suddenly we are in our farm in Gokuldham, and one of our brahmacharis was telling last 3 days, in front of his ashram, there is a tiger which is coming, and he's showing the torch and just showing his stick, and this tiger is going away. How is it possible, he's not afraid. So that is, he is not fearful. Vita bhaya. He's not having, he has given up fear. Whereas, a self-realized person who is not self-realized, na, when tiger comes, na, he's having bhaya. He's inflicted by bhaya. Whereas a Sthita Pragya person is not having bhaya. So that's the point. And then Sukeshu Vigata Spruha. Sukeshu Vigata Spruha means, whatever suffering is coming, it's coming by my prarabdha karma. I'll have to just tolerate. And even whatever happiness comes, like he's, facilitated, he's given some shawl and given some nice food items, prasadam to eat. He said, this also I have to tolerate because of my prarabdha. So Sukeshu Vigata Spruha. Vigata Spruha is a very important term that when Sukha comes, there is no desire in the heart. Let this Sukha come more and more. Spruha, let it increase more and more, like that. That desire is not there in his heart. So that is what it means. Sukeshu vigata spruha. Vitaraga bhaya krodha. You know? Vitaraga bhaya krodha. So he's free from attachment, fear, and anger. If miseries others inflict, he will not become angry. And that's why he's a Sthita Dhira Muni Rujyate. Now the second verse also explains how does he speak. Yah sarvatra visneyas tat tat prapya shubha shubham na binandanti na dveshti tasya pragya pratishrita. He has no motivated affections at all. Yah sarvatra visneyam. Now Vishwanath Chandra Thakur mentions that he is without affection to all conditions. But generally, because he has compassion, they and he has this merciful quality, so there is affection to some degree, but that is out of compassion. Otherwise, he's free from all material affection for all material things. Does not rejoice in attaining good fortune. Shubha prapya na binandanti. Like somebody comes and gives him a Rajbhog. Oh, I'll bless you. You do, let God give you a lot of opulence and wealth. And he goes to beg and somebody scolds him. He'll not curse him. Oh, Shubham Prapya na Dveshti. He's not Dveshti nor Abhinandanti. He's situated in Pragya. So he's situated in Sthita Pragya. So these two verses, 55 and 56, 56 and 57, how does he speak? Now 58 onwards till 63. Yeah, 63, Kim Asita. So there is a series of verses which are coming with respect to Kim Asita, which we will see now. Now, Kim Asita, very nice. Krishna gives an example from nature. Yada sammarate chayam kurmonganiva sarvasha indriyani indriyatebhya tasya pragya pratishrita. When he easily withdraws, yada ayam samharate. Harate means to withdraw. Samharate means samyak rupena. Fully he is able to withdraw completely. All the senses, indriyani. Indriyani is bahuvachan here. Please remember. All the senses. All the senses. Completely. Sarvasha. From sense objects. Indriyambhya. Indriya artebhya. Now, Indriya artha means the Indriya there and the Indriya artha, the object of the senses. And ebhya is, again, bahuvachan, sense objects. Like a turtle withdrawing his limbs. Kurma angani iva. Just like the turtle or the tortoise withdraws all its limbs within, similarly, a person is able to control his senses by withdrawing all the senses from the sense objects. So physically, the tortoise, it withdraws its limbs, its eyes and the neck portion, which is outside, and the four legs, which are there outside, it can withdraw. And even a huge tiger upon it, it's a hard shell, it cannot do anything. Recently, I saw a video by Radheshyam who was showing this very interesting video. I'll also share that in the group. So it's very difficult. So his control is so strong that it cannot be agitated. So the tortoise physically withdraws from this, it limps inside the shell. But how does a Sita Pragya, withdraw it? It is using the intelligence, because the intelligence is the Sarathi and the reins of the mind and the horses are the senses. So that's how, he does. He is situated in Pragya. So how does he sit? This is being answering. And just like the turtle, withdraws all the senses within itself by its will. So the Sthita Pragya, he withdraws his senses from the ears, from the sense objects such as sound. And he's able to do it internally without movement. That is because his pragya, his intelligence is fixed in the self and it is not controlled by the mind and the senses. That's the point. Now, Arjuna has a question. Even a person, who is a fool, who is fasting, also like self-controlled, he's also having problem with, he's not attracted to sense objects. So what is the difference between a sick person and a sthita pragya? So this verse answers. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina raso varjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. One who refrains from eating niraharasya dehina also stops the sense objects from some functioning. Vishaya vinivartante. Nivartante means stops. And vinivartante means complete stop of the functioning of the senses. But the desire for the sense objects remains. Rasavarjam. Having seen the Atma, Param Drishva, one can stop the desire as well. Asya rasopi nivartante. So here the point is that a person who is fasting, his senses become weak and he is no more attracted to enjoying the sense objects because of his severe health issues. But the desire to enjoy the sense objects remains. That doesn't go. But a yogi who is self-realized and he is rejoicing in the Atma, Param Drishtva, he has seen the Atma, he is purified from all these desires. And that's why he has no desire, you know, as well. And he can stop the desire as well. Whereas a person who is sick, who is stopped eating nirahara, for him it is not possible. A deeper meaning is also that ahar means not only food, ahar means the food for the senses. And it is our observation that even when a person is in deep deadly disease, the desire to enjoy sense objects is deep rooted. It doesn't go away so easily. What to speak of even a person who is diseased, even on the deathbed, if a beautiful woman comes, he sees that object with a desire to enjoy. That is how deep rooted the desires are. But one who has seen the Atma, and Prabhupada in his purport mentions, one who has tasted the beauty of Krishna doesn't enjoy pale things, he says. That's what he says. Okay, now further. यततो हि अपि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चित इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः. Even for the wise man, purushasya vipashchita, who endeavors to control the senses, yatato api, this, O son of Kunti, Kaunteya, the strong senses, indriyani pramatini, take away the mind by force. Mana prasabam haranti. So here, what Krishna is trying to make the point, and Vishwanath Chakra Thakur makes, that when one is still not self-realized, param drishtva, and one is a sadhaka and he's endeavoring. Yatata means he's endeavoring. And although he's a vipaschita, he's a wise man, but the senses are pramatini, they are very, very strong. Pramatini, haranti, prasabhamana. The senses drag the mind down. You know. So in the sadhana, there is great effort required. But he is always able to control the senses, but sometimes the mind might overcome him, and the senses might overcome the mind, and they can enjoy sense objects because pramatini, they cause agitation. The senses, seeing the sense objects, get agitated. So in the sadhana stage, even though one is a vipassita, not all times the control of the senses can happen. But in the Param Drishva stage, when one is self-realized, he is able to control the senses. So that's the point uh, Krishna is trying to make. And now, in the next verse, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita mataparaha vashehi yasya indriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. The yogi yukta who is devoted to me, matpara. Now, this is very, very important. First time in the Gita, Krishna directly speaks about Bhakti Yoga. This verse is directly speaking about Bhakti Yoga. Matpara. So only when the senses are engaged in Krishna service, after restraining all the senses, Tani Sarvani Sanyamya. Sanyamya means controlling the senses, then engaging the senses in Krishna service, will remain seated unresponsive to sense objects, asita. So the question Arjuna had asked, Kim asita? So Kim asita is only possible for a devotee. This verse you can say, Vipaschita is a jnani. He'll also fail. And this verse, is speaking about a yogi. Even a yogi, until he develops the darshan of Paramatma, the Vishaya can go to the sense objects. So only in one sense, Yukta Asita, Kim Asita is only possible when it is in relation to Krishna Matpara. So that's what this verse is speaking. And Tasya Pragya Pratishtita. Now, here there are these three things. There is the Samyamya, control of the senses, Yukta Asita Matpara, fixing the mind on Krishna, and then controlled engagement of the senses in the service of Krishna. That is Vashe, conquest of the senses. So that's how it is possible only by Bhakti Yoga. That's what is directly indicated in this verse. Now, in the next verse, the Sthita Pragya must control his mind, Vishwanath Thakur says. And that is the cause of the control of the senses. If one does not control the mind, then what is the result? These two verses speak. Dhyayato vishayan pumsam sangasteshu pajayate sanga sanjayate kama kama krodha vijayate krodhat bhavati manmoha sammohat smriti vibhrama smriti vramshat buddhinashat pranashyati. So this is called as the fall down sutra. When a person who meditates on the sense objects, dhyayato vishayan pumsam. So because his mind is not controlled, the senses are not controlled, and the senses will meditate on the sense objects. Everything begins with contemplation. From contemplation arises attachment. Sangasteshu bhajayate. From attachment arises desire. You know, sangat sanjayate kama. So this is a very important principle. I'm just trying to make this point here. Try to understand this. Oh, why it's not writing? Oh, yeah. So this is a sense object. And this is the senses, the eye. Okay? It sees the sense object. Now, sangat sanjayate kama. Like a person, sees this is the movie, today this movie is released. But there is another person. This person desires this sense object, but another friend comes and tells, let's go for this movie. So Sangha means also association. So our desires are not just linear, but they are triangular. When that person senses see the object, sense object, but there is another person in his association who will try to enjoy the sense objects. So they are not only linear, but they are triangular. So that's why we should be careful of the association. Sangat sanjayate kama. And from kama, when kama is not fulfilled, then there is krodha. And if kama is fulfilled also, there's more desire to enjoy. And that frustration, if the desire is not fulfilled, that is in one sense, good. But when the desire is fulfilled and then there is more desire, that is more detrimental in one sense. So there is first contemplation. Let me consider this for a moment. Oh, what is this nice movie? Then, oh, I like it. This is my hero. Lust. I want it at any cost, at all cost. That sound, our emotions become stronger. Who can stop me from getting it? My father tells, no, I'll not give you money for the movie. I will go. Then confusion about what is good and what is bad. Smriti Vibhrama, forgetfulness of good and bad. Forgetfulness of good and bad means based on Shastra, what is right and what Buddhinasha, mistaking the bad to be the good, then fall down. Then what happens from Krodha? Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger arises bewilderment, moha. From bewilderment comes loss of memory. Sammoha, Smriti, Vibhrama. So Smriti, Vibhrama, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that From bewilderment comes loss of remembrance of what is most beneficial for oneself as taught in the Smriti Shastras. Smriti Brahmshat Buddhinasha. From loss of memory comes loss of intelligence. And from loss of intelligence, one becomes completely destroyed. Buddhinasha Pranashati. Then falls in the samsara. So now, from 64 to 72, Krishna speaks about the Kim Brajit. He has spoken about how he controls his senses. Kim Brajit from 64 to 71. 72 also you can say. Of course, 72 speaks about the person who is uh, situated in what is the result, end result he speaks. So now 64 to 72, Kim Brajit. Kim Brajit means very interesting it is. Please hear carefully. रागद्वेष विमुक्तेस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियाश्चरन् आत्मवशे विधि आत्मा प्रसादम् अधिगच्छति. One whose mind is submissive, vidhi atma. One who engages in the sense objects with the senses. Now, Kim Brajit means how he engages the sense in sense objects. But he engages the senses in sense objects freed from attachment and repulsion. This is the most important quality. Raga Dvesha Vimuktesu. So, for a Sthita Pragya, he is free from attachment and aversion, and he engages the senses in sense objects free from that attachment and aversion. Whereas a person who is not Sthita Pragya, he engages because of attachment, and that is a cause of bondage. Whereas the Sthita Pragya also engages the senses in sense objects, but because he is free from Raga and Dvesha, there is no bondage. That is the difference you have to understand. Raga Dvesha Vimuktestu, under the control of the mind, Atma Vashe. So this is the second quality. He is free from Raga Dvesha Vimukta and his mind is under control. So the senses are engaged in the sense objects under the control of the mind. Whereas one who is not Sthita Pragya, his mind is not controlled and his mind is moved by attachment and he asakta, he is attached to sense objects, but he engages in sense objects with detachment. And only such a person, attains peace. Prasadam adhigacchati. Prasadam means the mercy of the Lord. So vidheya means submissive. Submissive means he is controlled. Then, having attained the mercy, what happens? Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasya pajayate prasanna cetasa hiyashu buddhi paravatishtate. From this peace, prasade arises pajayate, destruction of all distress. Asya sarva dukkhanam hani. Quickly, Ashu, the intelligence of the peaceful minded person, prasanna cetasa buddhi becomes completely fixed. Parevat tishtate. So, from the attaining the mercy of the Lord, prasade, what happens? There is destruction of all distress. Asya sarva dukkhanam hani. Hani means destruction. Sarva dukkhanam. And what is the dukkha is, here it is mentioned, I think. Sarva dukkhanam hani, destruction of the cravings for material enjoyment. He has no cravings for material enjoyment. So what is dukkha? Dukkha means kama supeksha, sukha upeksha. Sukha peksha is a come here, but sukha. Dukkha means kama. You have a desire to enjoy. And the moment you have the desire to enjoy, you will face misery. That's it. That's what it means. That's what it means. Sukha upeksha. Prasanna Chetana means realization of his Satchidananda. He's in his Satchidananda, Chetana. That's why he is Prasanna Chetana. Then, but one who is not, self-realized, not controlled his mind, his intelligence is not fixed. His state is mentioned here. The opposite condition is mentioned here. नास्तिर्बुद्धि अयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चा भावयतः शांति अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम. For a person with uncontrolled mind, na cha ayuktasya bhavana. Bhavana means emotions. Emotions are related to the mind. There is no intelligence fixed in the soul. Nasti buddhi ayuktasya. The intelligence is not fixed in the soul. The intelligence fixed in mind, senses, sense objects. And no meditation on the Paramatma. Na cha abhavayate. Without meditation, he has no peace. Na cha bhavayata shanti. And without peace, where is bliss? Ashantasya kuta sukham. But here, because he's prasanna cheto, buddhi parivartishyate. And he's blissful, he's happy, he's peaceful. That's the difference between the two. So there is something called as a peace of mind, absence of agitating thoughts and desires. Sometimes people come to the temple, oh, we are feeling very peaceful here, shant, But actually, they have a lot of desires, but it has just got little pacified, you know. But what Krishna is speaking about Shanti is an internal Shanti where there are no material desires. That is the peace of heart. Connection of the soul with Krishna through love that offers shelter to the soul. So that deeper level of peace we are speaking here. Now, further, Krishna warns that even in such a condition, the senses, when they wander to the sense objects, the mind can drag the intelligence down. There in the previous verse was spoken how the senses drag the mind down. Here, how the mind drags the intelligence down, it is mentioned here. Indriyanam hi charantam yanmanonuvidiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayurnavam evambasi. One of the moving senses. Charatam indriyanam. The cows go for grazing and they are called as Go Charan Leela. Similarly, our senses go for grazing of sense objects. The eyes for beautiful form, the ears for nice sound, the tongue for taste, the skin for touch, and nice fragrance. So while one is, engaging the senses and sense objects with freed from attachment, raga and resha and controlled mind, even at that time he should be very careful because the senses can charatam and the senses will go to charan to where sense objects. And if the mind fixes, which the mind follows, yan mano anuvidyate, if the mind follows that, what will happen? Steals away the intelligence. Tadasya harati pragyam. So the intelligence will be stirred as wind moves about on the water. Vayu namam ivambasi. So the analogy what Krishna is giving of Vayu Nava Mimamasi is very important. Significance of the boat wind analogy, that intrinsically vulnerable situation. We are like a boat in the ocean, and the boat is the body, and the raft is the fine intelligence. But the waves which come, the waves are like the wind. Sorry, the wind, which is the waves, these are our, desires of the mind, which go towards the sense objects. And sometimes these waves can come and take the boat in that direction. So the higher force of the wind overpowers the boat, us. Similarly, the higher force of Vedic literature can help us. So that is what the knowledge is given. And then that is why what one should do, he says, Tasmat. तस्माद्यस्य महाभावो निगृहीतानि सर्वश इंद्रियाणि इंद्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. He who completely restrains. Tasmat yasya nigritani sarvasha. Sarvasha means completely, all the senses, indriyani, from the sense objects. Indriyabhya, by fixing the mind on me. That's what Vishnu Chakra says, by fixing the mind on me. Almighty I am the one, Mahabhava, is fixed in Pragya. Tasya Pragya Pratishtita. So ultimately, all the senses, when they are fixed on Krishna, Savai Mana Krishna Padar Vindo, and then all the senses are fixed in Krishna's service, then only one can attain the Pragya. That is the point being made here. Now, a difference between a sthita prajna and a person is enjoying sense objects is like day and night. This Krishna gives with an example. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati sanyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato muni. The sthita prajna is awake. Samyami jagrati tasyam. Jagrati means he is awake in his consciousness, not physical awake, is awake in the night when all other living entities sleep. Ya sarva bhutana nisha. That means he's awake in spiritual activities, whereas the materialists are not awake in spiritual activities, they are sleeping. The night of the observant Sita Pragya, Pashyato Mune Nisha, is the time during which all the living entities are awake. Sa Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani. That means these living entities, they are enjoying the sense object, sense gratification. That time he's completely callous to it. He's as good as sleeping. And it is as good as night because in night there is no activity. Na? So he doesn't engage in the senses and sense objects. So it's as good as night. It's not the literal day and night. So here what I mentioned is there is a deeper meaning. Day is fear of activity, night is fear of inactivity. So day for sense gratifier is like the night for spiritualist. And these sense gratifiers are engaged in sense gratificatory activities. Night for sense gratifier. You know, he's, it's like the day for spiritualist. There is no activity, because they're sleeping, but means they are not engaged in the sense objects. And these are engaged in spiritual activities. Day for the spiritualists. So that's a deeper meaning. And now in the next verse, uh, Krishna speaks about the condition of not being affected or agitated when he accepts the sense objects. The sense objects come to him, but he's not affected or agitated, just like the rivers come to the ocean and the ocean doesn't swell or doesn't move out of his boundary. So he gives this example. Apuryamana pratishtam samudramapa pravishante yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishante sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. Just as the rivers enter the ocean, yadvat apa pravishanti samudra, which has fixed banks, achala pratishtam, and is never quite full, apuryamanam. So the objects of enjoyment enter into the sthita pragya, tadvat kama yamma pravishyanti sarve, but he remains peaceful. So shanti mapnoti. This is not so for the desirer of those objects. Kama, kami. Kama means the object. Kami means one who desires those objects. So the desire of those objects. So the kami, when he sees the objects, his consciousness is affected and he goes. But a sthita prajna is like an ocean. And when the objects come, he is not agitated, just like the rivers flow into the ocean doesn't swell and nor it moves away from its boundary much. It has fixed banks. So that is what is the condition of the sthita prajna. So ocean, you know, the consciousness of the Sita Pragya is like an ocean when rivers enter undisturbed. And the consciousness of a person who is not Sita Pragya is like a puddle when rivers enter disrupted. And why? Because the Sita Pragya is abundant inner happiness. And this person, who is not Sita Pragya has sand inner happiness. That's why he wants to take pleasure in sense objects. So that's the difference. Okay. So bhakti transforms our heart from a puddle to an ocean, not possible by human effort, but only by grace. During the transformation, sadhaka stage, what keeps us on the spiritual platform is our buddhi. After the transformation, siddha stage, what keeps us on the spiritual platform is our priti for the Lord. Okay, now the next verse. Vihaya kamanyah sarvan pumam sharati nispruha nirmamo nirahankara sashantim adhigacchati. He who gives up all the objects of enjoyment. Vihaya kamanyah sarvan. So this verse describes a person who does not enjoy the sense objects at all because he has no attachment to them. He is nispruha, but carries out actions without desires for them. Pumam charati nispura, being devoid of possessiveness and ego. Nirmama nirankara, attains peace. So shanti adi gacchati. And ultimately, what happens? Is concludes the topic by saying that ultimately he will attain Brahma Nirvana. Esha Brahmi Siti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimohyati Stitva Syamante Kalepi Brahma Nirvana Mrichyati. O son of Partha, this is the situation for attaining Brahman. Esha Brahmi Sthiti. So here there are two verses in the Gita where Radharani is directly addressed. Brahmi is Strilinga, it is feminine. And Daivim Prakritim, Mahatmanastu Mampartha, Daivim Prakritim Ashrita. So there also it is Strilinga. So both these verses speak about Radharani. In fact, Krishna glorifies bhakti in the entire Bhagavad Gita. So it's directly the glorification of Srimati Radharani in one sense. Esha Brahmi Sthiti, but situated in this internal energy. Brahma is masculine, Brahman is neutral, and Brahmi is feminine. This is the situation of attaining Brahman. Esha Brahmi Sthiti. Attaining that state, Enam Prapya, one is not bewildered, no vimiti, and attains Brahma Nirvana, Richati. Richati means attains Brahma Nirvana even at the time of death. Antakale Stitvasyam. So Brahmi means that which gives attainment of Brahman, even one at the point of death. What to speak of in young age? If you engage in practice, one attains Brahman Nirvana. So that's how Vishwanath Chakra Thakur concludes. In the middle, sorry, in the second chapter, which is the contents of the entire Gita, there is Gyan and Karma spoken, and also Bhakti is glorified in one verse, 2.61, but it's still indirect. That's what. So in the Sutra form, the entire Gita is there, which will now be expanded in the 16 other chapters, you can say, in one sense. So Brahma Nirvanam, has different meanings that we will go when we come to the fifth chapter. That time I will discuss. So I'll stop here, and any questions, any clarifications of this last section about the Sthita Pragya? Do you have any questions? Navneet Kalra Mataji, yes. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, done with.
Yes.
So, Prabhuji, I have too many questions. I'll start with one. First is
Just
that,
one after the other.
okay, sir. This desire to lord over the material energy to be the enjoyer, where does it originate? At the soul level or at the mind level? And how do you reverse it?
Basically, it is the desire of the soul only, you have to understand. And the root desire is there, Bhogavancha, because enjoyer quality is the quality of the soul. Please remember that. And because the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, is Bhokta, he is the enjoyer. And Krishna's sparks are the souls. So they also can have these same desires, you know. So, but to enjoy independently of Krishna, that is a problem to compete with Krishna and not take part in his enjoyment as his part and parcel and independently to enjoy. So the root is there in the soul itself. And with the conditioning, the impressions are there in the mind unlimitedly to enjoy sense objects. But the root desire is there from the soul only. That's how we have to understand.
Okay. Can I ask the second question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and Prabhuji, this part about controlling the senses, is it part of bhakti yoga as well, and do we achieve it by following the regulative principles, or is there something more to it?
Yes, in the Bhakti Yoga process, in the Jnana and Ashtanga, there is withdrawal of the senses on sense objects. In the Bhakti Yoga process, there is engagement of the senses, in relation to Krishna, the supreme sense object, all connected to Krishna, like, Amrish Maharaj, Savay Manat Krishna Padanu, Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanu Varnani. We have the propensity to speak, and here you hear Hari Katha. And use your hands and legs in mandir marjana and to go to the mandir. So like that, the karmendriyas, gyanendriyas, when they are all connected to Krishna's service, now the senses get purified and the antakaran gets purified. But please remember that although this is bhakti, but this is actually Mishra Bhakti, because Shuddha Bhakti means the pure engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam. Paratvena nirmalam, purified senses. And you are free from the upadi. And you are acting as a upadi as Jivera Sarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. So on that transcendental platform, it is practice of Shuddha Bhakti. But we have to understand that even during the probationary period, there is engagement of the senses, and at a higher level, the purification is happening, and that's why the anarthas are getting destroyed. Just like uh, a gold which is taken from the ore is put under fire, and there are impurities. Gold is already pure, but there are impurities. And when it is put to fire, all the impurities come out. So the impurities come out and the senses get purified. And when we engage the purified senses, then there is natural bliss and natural happiness in the service of the Lord. So then real devotional activities begin. Till then, it is like, professional period, you can say like that. Is it okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Can
Yeah.
I ask
We'll
another
take
one?
one more question. Wait, we'll
Okay.
take another
Okay.
question from Subhik. Yes, Sobha Ikshana Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, regarding verse number 2.55, there it is about pure transcendental consciousness, like Sita Prajna. So, Prabhu, this pure transcendental consciousness we should understand from Jiver Swarupa Hoy Krishna Nitya Das or Anya Bilashita Shunyam, or neither of these two.
No, no, no. Here, see, here it is just speaking about a Sthita Pragya by Nishkam Karma Yoga, one who has attained Sthita Pragya. And, although here it is being spoken about just a self-realized soul.
Hmm.
Now, uh, although this is applicable to all the paths, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, all three, have different levels of Sthita Pragya conditions. But the general principle is given here.
Got it. Yes, Prabhu.
General principle is given that you have to understand. I don't want to elaborate more on this, but we have discussed all this in the verse by verse, discussion when we had. Now we are just going through the overview. So general principle is being mentioned. That's it. I can say now.
Yes,
Okay.
Prabhu.
Any other questions anyone else has? Any other questions or clarifications? Yes, Navneet Kalra Mataji. Yes. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hmm.
There's this general question. In Gyan and Ashtang Marg, is generally it seems like only the males are doing it, right? How does a female get a liberation?
Interesting question. Yeah, that's the glory of path of bhakti. Bhakti doesn't require any adhikar. Even what to speak Gyan and Ashtanga, to practice karma, you need adhikar. And, generally, women in one sense, you can say they are more fortunate because just by serving their husbands and assisting their husbands, whatever the husband practices, they get the benefit, without any effort. Like you can see Mother Devahuti, because she was serving a very exalted yogi, Kardam Muni, she got all the benefits, and then the son as Devahuti, Kapil Dev was born, and Kapil Dev himself instructed the mother. So in that sense, in the karma marg, yes, this is the benefit they have. And yes, generally it is very difficult for somebody to take sannyas because Gyan and Ashtanga marg begin by taking sannyas. When you're completely matured in Nishkam Karma Yoga and your Sthita Pragya. So by assisting them also, then they get the same benefit, they get the same benefit. But in the path of bhakti, everyone can practice. And again, in sometimes, women also have a, more advantage. Like, if you see the path of bhakti now, sometimes men have to go out in the material world, earn money, tell lies, deal with the material energy. If the women are mothers are chaste and they are dedicated to the Lord, they can just be doing at home the yajna of cooking for the Lord, taking care of the Lord's home, temple, and they are not dealing much with the material energy, and they can make swifter advancement in one sense in the path of bhakti. So like that, there are, advantages, disadvantages like that, all these aspects are there. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, so we'll stop now. So tomorrow we will begin with the third chapter overview. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Hare Krishna.